It all began with a simple request. Nothing flashy, nothing elaborate, just a single letter that landed on the desks of White House staff. It came from a young Navy captain, Emma Caldwell. At first glance, it might have seemed like just another piece of correspondence, but there was something different about this one. Inside, the message was brief but striking. Emma, a 28-year-old Navy captain, one of the youngest in history, had written directly to the President of the United States, Donald Trump, requesting a private meeting. A request like this? It wasn't typical. Meetings with the president were usually reserved for high-ranking officials, admirals, generals, long-established figures in the military. But Emma? She wasn't a general. She wasn't an admiral. She was young, driven, and clearly had something important to say. Her letter was simple, yet powerful. Mr. President, I have something important to discuss. Not for my sake, but for those who serve in silence. When that letter finally made its way onto President Trump's desk, he raised an eyebrow. He had met countless military leaders over the years, but a captain of her age? Requesting a meeting like this? That was rare, almost unheard of. He held the letter for a moment, considering. Finally, he spoke. Let's hear what she has to say. Within hours, the arrangements were made. What no one knew at the time, not Emma, not Trump, not the staff scrambling to set up the meeting, was that this conversation would spark something far greater. It would ignite discussions that stretched beyond the walls of the White House, beyond the military, beyond politics itself. For Emma, this wasn't just a meeting. This was a mission. As Emma stepped off the military jet that had carried her to Washington, she felt it, the weight of unseen eyes. The moment news leaked that a young Navy captain was meeting with the president, speculation exploded. Was she receiving an honor? Had she uncovered a scandal? What was so urgent that she had to speak to the president directly? Social media was on fire. Theories flooded in from all directions. A young female Navy captain? Now that's leadership. One tweet read, applauding her as an inspiration. Others weren't so kind. This is just a PR stunt for the White House, another comment scoffed. Emma, however, ignored the noise. She had spent her entire life proving doubters wrong. At 18, when she first enlisted in the Navy, they questioned her. At 22, when she became an officer, they doubted her. And again at 26, when she took command, they whispered behind her back. Now? She wasn't here for approval. She wasn't here for recognition. She was here to speak the truth. As the White House gates loomed in front of her, she took a deep breath. This wasn't about politics. It was about something bigger, something deeper. And she was ready to tell it. The moment she stepped into the Oval Office, she felt it. The weight of history surrounded her. The air was thick with a sense of significance. Every inch of the room, every polished wooden surface, every portrait of past leaders felt imposing, yet strangely warm. And there, standing near his desk, hands casually tucked into his pockets, was Donald Trump. He watched her with curiosity before greeting her. Captain Caldwell. His tone was steady, measured. I've met generals, I've met admirals, but a 28-year-old captain? That's not something you see every day. Emma met his gaze without hesitation. Straight-backed, eyes unwavering. She stood at attention. Mr. President, thank you for meeting with me. Trump gestured to the seat across from him. Your letter got my attention. You said this wasn't about you, but about those who serve in silence. Tell me, what does that mean? She didn't flinch. It means, Mr. President, that behind every mission, every medal, there's a cost, one that most people never see. Leadership isn't just about victories. Sometimes, it's about surviving the failures. Trump leaned forward slightly, intrigued. Go on. Emma steadied herself, inhaling deeply. She had come here to tell the truth, and she wasn't going to hold back. Her voice remained firm, but her heart pounded. The country loves to talk about leadership, she began. They celebrate the wins, the promotions, the glory. But what they don't talk about, the nights leaders lie awake, the choices that haunt them, the mistakes that cost lives. Trump's expression darkened. He had spoken to many soldiers before, but few who spoke like this. You're talking about sacrifice. Emma's fists clenched. Not just any sacrifice, she clarified. The kind that stays with you. The kind you can't shake, no matter how many medals they pin on your uniform. Trump studied her for a long moment. Then he asked, "Tell me, what's the hardest sacrifice you've had to make?" Her jaw tightened. This was it. This was the moment she had been bracing for. 3 years ago, she began, her voice quieter now, I made a call in the field. It was supposed to be routine, nothing out of the ordinary, but everything went sideways. The room fell into silence as she continued. My best friend, Lieutenant Jake Carter, trusted my decision. He followed my command. And because of it, he died. For the first time since she had entered the room, Trump didn't speak. The weight of her words hung in the air, heavy and unshakable. Finally, after what felt like forever, he broke the silence. And you still carry it. She swallowed hard. Every single day. Because that's what leadership was. Not just making the right choices, but carrying the weight of the wrong ones. Trump's expression remained unreadable, but something in his posture shifted. He nodded slowly, considering everything she had just said. I understand that. But Emma wasn't sure if he truly did. Because she had seen it, what it meant to lose someone under her command. What it meant to live with it. To wake up every morning knowing that no matter how many good decisions she made, she could never erase that one. And now she had said it out loud. The question was, what would come next? Trump leaned back in his chair, his expression shifting into something softer, more reflective. His voice, quieter than Emma had ever heard it, carried a weight she hadn't expected. You know, he began, his gaze distant, when you're president, every decision you make affects millions. People love you. People hate you. You try to do the right thing, but no matter what, you can never make everyone happy. Someone always pays the price. He shook his head slightly, his voice tinged with something almost like regret. And sometimes, you never even know if you made the right call. Emma hadn't expected this level of honesty. It caught her off guard. She hesitated, then asked the question that had been lingering in her mind. Then why do it? Trump exhaled, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Same reason you do, Captain. Because if you don't, someone else will. And if a decision has to be made, you'd rather be the one carrying that weight than let someone else bear it. Emma took a slow, measured breath. Maybe, just maybe, he did understand. And that made this conversation even more important. Her voice softened. I remember the last thing Jake said to me before our mission. He smiled at me, same cocky grin as always, and said, if this goes south, don't you dare carry me like a ghost. She blinked, jaw tightening. But that's exactly what I've done. Trump folded his hands together, studying her. You were his leader. That's a burden you'll always feel. Then, after a moment of silence, he asked, but tell me, what would he say if he saw you here right now? Emma hadn't thought about that. She looked down for a second, exhaling sharply. He'd probably roll his eyes and say, why are you wasting time talking to the president when you could be making a difference? Trump chuckled, shaking his head. Sounds like a good man. Emma nodded. He was. Her voice was steady, but filled with something deeper. And that's why I'm here. Because leadership isn't about rank or power. It's about standing up for those who can't. Trump nodded slowly, his expression serious. Then he leaned forward. Then let's make sure they hear you. Emma frowned. What do you mean? Trump met her gaze. You came here with something to say. Now, I want you to say it, to the nation. Outside the White House, the media was in a frenzy. Reporters scrambled for details, their headlines blaring speculation. Who is Captain Emma Caldwell, and why is she meeting with the president? Some believed she was being considered for a high-profile promotion. Others whispered about a hidden political agenda. Social media was a storm of theories, ranging from admiration to skepticism. But Emma ignored it all. She hadn't come for recognition. She hadn't come for a title. She had come to speak the truth. Now, Trump had just handed her a platform bigger than she had ever imagined. She hesitated. Are you sure about this? Trump shrugged. You wanted to speak for those who serve in silence. Here's your chance. That night, as Emma lay in her hotel bed, she replayed Jake's words in her mind. If you ever get the chance to speak up for those who can't do it. She sat up, reached for her phone, and typed out a message to the White House liaison. Tell the president, I'll do it. And just like that, her mission had grown into something far bigger than she had ever imagined. The next morning, Emma stood in front of a mirror, adjusting her uniform. This wasn't a battlefield, but it sure felt like one. She arrived at the White House briefing room, where Trump was already waiting. He smirked. Nervous? She exhaled. A little. Good.
His tone was firm.
That means it matters. Emma took a deep breath. What exactly do you want me to say? Trump leaned against the podium, arms crossed. I want you to say what you told me. I want America to hear the truth about sacrifice, about leadership, about what it really means to wear that uniform. Emma hesitated. People will judge me. Some will say I'm too young to speak for others. Trump's expression darkened slightly. Captain, people are going to talk no matter what you do. The question is, are you going to let them decide who you are? Or are you going to tell them yourself? That was all she needed to hear. Emma squared her shoulders. Let's do this. The White House press room was packed. Reporters whispered among themselves, cameras clicked nonstop, and millions of Americans tuned in. No one quite knew what to expect. Emma stepped up to the podium, her uniform crisp, her posture strong. She wasn't a politician. She wasn't a celebrity. She was just a soldier. She took a breath. And then she spoke. America loves its heroes. We celebrate those who succeed, the ones who come home draped in medals. But we don't talk enough about the ones who don't make it back, or the ones who do, but leave pieces of themselves behind. The room fell silent. She continued. I wear this uniform with pride. But leadership? Leadership isn't just about rank. It's about responsibility. 3 years ago, I made a decision that cost a man his life. And I have carried that weight ever since. Her voice didn't waver. She wasn't here to impress anyone. She was here to tell the truth. And for the first time, the world was listening.